So, you know, I've kind of blundered on enough. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have about, you know, business, technique, whatever, equipment.
Yeah. Your right hand, how you get so fast?
Okay, it's because I'm spastic. No, I am. When I was a little kid, you know, I played really spastic, and I played really fast because I had a, you know, a hyped up nervous system. I guess because I started really young. I was like, you know, 7, 8 years old, and when I was 10 or 11, I just played this just hyperspace. And I never did have to build up to that personally because I was just kind of a whacked out kid. But I gradually, as I got older, I cleaned it up a little bit and managed to try to get it under control a little more. But I can explain one thing about my picking technique is if you move your arm a lot, it's kind of a waste of motion. Although I'm not going to stand here and say that any technique is valid and this technique is not. You know, a lot of people, there's a certain kind of pedantry that people put forth that says this is correct and this is not correct. But I think in music, anything is correct that you want to do in creativity and art. You know, you could take the most bastardized technique in the world and make something great out of it. So I'm not going to say this is right and this is wrong. But for me, I physically seem to be able to enjoy myself more if I minimize the arm movement and just move the wrist. And there's one other convenient byproduct of that is you have to kind of anchor the arm somewhere to keep it from moving, to isolate the movement into the wrist. And then that accomplishes some of the things like Andy was talking about earlier with your muting, because your hand has to rest somewhere. That's a light balance because in a floating tremolo system like this, you can easily get out of control. And this guitar, actually I've been playing this guitar on gigs lately. I've been playing the last couple of weeks. I haven't played this one, but and so a couple times when I was playing earlier tonight, I was getting a little out of control with the action. And I was going, oh my God, when it was happening, and I couldn't stop it for some bizarre reason. But you know, if you're trying to keep your arms still and you're picking here. Resting on the strings, and the arm is staying relatively still, and most of the action is coming from the wrist, and then therefore the muting is taking place because you have to rest the wrist somewhere if you're going to move it and not the arm. Otherwise, you're doing this, which is okay. I'm not going to say that that's wrong or anything, but for me, I don't enjoy it as much. The only other thing is the angle of the pick. I tend to angle the pick like this. Now I've seen some people so that the edge of the pick is going over the string like this. And I do that mainly because it makes a different sound. It might be a little easier in some ways, and it might not, depending on what you've done in your experience in playing. But if the pick is flat, it tends to make a sound like this. And if you angle the pick, a different sound. You know, you can learn to do it either way, and both ways are probably very applicable at different times. But I used to pick this way, and the way it rubs off the string, and rubs off the string going the other way. So that's kind of an important thing about some of the way that I use my right hand technique. Other questions?
You did an extremely wide interval before you started talking about your body. Just go over that.
Well, let me see. I want to go back just a step and then I'll answer your question because that reminded me of something. What I didn't get to is some of the techniques that I'm trying to work on now that's kind of unusual is narrowing it down to 1 note per string instead of when I was going 2 notes per string. 3 notes and so on. You can do things based on 1 note per string and it not be an arpeggio, because an arpeggio sounds classically like. But if you play 1 note per string, which is an arpeggio, but you're playing it as a scale, it has a different sound to it. It sounds like this. using one note per string, a pattern, instead of 2, 3, whatever. It's one note per string. I just wanted to demonstrate that. And about your thing with wide intervals, you know, I just am attracted to the sound that they make. Some of them are really hard because of the physical position you have to put yourself in to do them. I mean, really, it's very hard to just do them and just not make at least an ugly face. I don't know why. I keep asking myself, why do I have to make such an ugly face when I play that? But the key to that also is pulling the thumb just way far around the neck, and also thinking about centering the center of gravity, or the pivot of gravity in your hand, in the middle of your hand. Instead of thinking about maybe the anchor of your hand being your thumb and this, and then working upwards from there, by moving the thumb around, you shift the center of your hand to here, and now you can go this way from the middle point and this way from the middle point, and you can accomplish more wide stretches that way. So that's what I think about that.
What do you think about Buckethead?
Great guy. Really, I just talked to him a couple days ago, and we're trying to do a recording with him and me and maybe the drummer Shawn Lane that I was talking about. And it'll be something really psycho. There's one thing that he does that's kind of interesting. I mean, a lot of things he does are interesting. He's a very unusual individual. But one thing I can mention that kind of has a relationship to me is that there was a tape that I made a long time ago that was influenced by the modern classical composer named Conlon Nancarrow. It's a classical composer that composes for mechanized piano. And he composes by punching holes in the piano rolls. And he has these pianos that are hydraulically hot rodded to play speeds in excess of 400 and 500 notes per second. And so he sits in for years and punches holes in these roll mechanisms. And so I liked what he was doing, and so I tried to copy it on the guitar by this bizarre editing technique where I would string together things on the guitar by playing something and then editing another thing right behind it and editing another thing right behind it. It just sounded like insane, just insanity. And Buckethead got a bootleg of that some way and had no idea that it was a construction of editing. He thought I was actually playing it. And so he tried to figure out a way that it could be done by tapping with 2 hands on the neck, and he got pretty close. It's some really, that's the origin of some of the crazy stuff that he does.
Can't tell us who he is.
You don't know his real name? Should I say his real name? Do you know?
I have no idea. Come on, tell us.
He may hunt me down though, because he's really into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. That's his favorite movie. He watches it like 4,000 times a year. Does he have
a record out? I've never heard
He's done a new record for Sony CBS, and it's called Welcome to Buckethead Land. I believe it's what it's going to be called. And his lead singer is the actor that played the guy with the metal plate in his head in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And his name is Onions. And I don't know if I should tell you his name because he might send onions after me.
First name, at least.
Yeah, first name.
Brian, first name. That's all I'll say.
All right, last name.
How often do you use the combination of the pick and right hand fingers?
Pretty often. I kind of developed that because I was listening to a lot of different saxophone type phrases. And the way that certain saxophonists play, namely Charlie Parker and Cannonball Adderley were my 2 biggest influences, is about that kind of syncopation and phrasing. And that's achieved in the saxophone by blowing harder on certain notes. And so in order to try to kind of emulate that in the guitar, that's why I came up with putting the finger in. And that's the purpose that I use it for, was to try to achieve some of the sound that I'd heard in some of the saxophone players that I like. So that leg slow is like. By using the finger finger, I can put the accents in there like someone would on a
Is
saxophone.
that with one finger or two?
Just one, just picking one finger. So, that's maybe a couple more questions at most. Anything?
Where do you come up with your melodies from?
Just from the universe. Now, music, who's to say, where music comes from, God, the universe, wherever. It can also come out of craft and, many other things, personal experiences and stuff. But for me, once I write a song, it takes me very little time to record it, but sometimes it takes me months to write a song, because I try to only get the basis of the song from that space place or wherever the music comes from in just an almost completed state. And then after I get that, I'll use the craft or whatever that I know to try to harmonically modulate it here or there, or accompany it or orchestrate it in different ways. But I try to just get the melody from that place that, no one really knows where the music comes from. Well, I guess we're about, getting close to time, so maybe we can do the jam if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Let's get this equipment cabinet up here. Sorry, I didn't play the other song I was going to play. But,
Use that finger technique.
yeah, let me just play one, because I only played one song. Let me play this one other tune, and then we'll do the jam. I just got carried away and didn't